When South Africans fill the streets during the Rugby World Cup, waving flags and singing the national anthem, that was patriotism. But when Donald Trump declared America first, demanding stricter borders and putting US interests above global cooperation, that was nationalism. But when frustrated South Africans turned on African migrants like Nigerians, Zimbabweans and Somalis in violent protests, that was xenophobia. Patriotism unites, nationalism separates, and xenophobia destroys. Well, today, let's discuss where we should draw the line.
So much fun, guys!
What's up, guys? Welcome to my YouTube channel, The Foreigner. I am a foreigner from East Africa, Uganda. Actually, I'm right now home. So I can simply say today I'm not a foreigner, but based on the channel and the interest of the channel, we discuss foreign stuff, we discuss with foreigners. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Well, guys, thank you very much for coming back. Thank you for passing by. If it's your first time on this channel, my name is The Foreigner. I am a foreigner from East Africa, Uganda. Well, I started this journey of vlogging from South Africa, where I was a typical foreigner and actually an illegal one to mention. So now, guys, if you're a South African watching for the first time, I'm not in South Africa right now. I'm home. I'm in Uganda. Well, guys, based on the title, today we're gonna draw a line in these three ideas of patriotism, nationalism, and xenophobia. Well, they simply confuse so many people, you inclusive and myself. So, but now today we're gonna try to see if we can draw a line. Patriotism is the love of one's country, pride in its people, culture and achievements. Nationalism, on the other hand, can be a very powerful but very dangerous force where loyalty to the nation is placed above everything else. Sometimes it's even placed above humanity itself. Now in this video, I want to deep dive into the difference between these two ideas, why today they matter more than ever, and how they shape the way we see ourselves. Guys, for starters, I have a few points I just noted down so that I don't forget. So please pardon me for this. Let me just read down and then I'll break it down for you. Well, for starters, let's start with patriotism. Patriotism pretty much promotes unity and harmony, or even you can say dialogue within the country. So for example, currently Uganda has IPOD, Inter-Party Organization for Dialogue, I think that's what it's called. So IPOD is pretty much converging all parties, political parties, to come together and dialogue and have a discussion and harmonize and try to see how better the country can go. Maybe sometimes it couldn't be fruitful, but that's one of the points, or that's one of the steps towards national unity. So these are politically disagreeing parties come together and try to unite to discuss issues bothering them. For example, the opposition is trying to talk to the government or the leading party that please do this. Don't threaten protesters, or don't imprison our people because they're protesting against your government or against your will and stuff like that. So that's one way you could say patriotism is working. One of the pillars of patriotism is unity. For example, it's happening in Uganda. There is an inter-party organization that are inter-party organization that helps in bringing political parties to come together to dialogue or to have a conversation. Maybe they can agree on one thing or the other. Well, the other thing, they usually are patriots, usually serve the community. For example, they volunteer to clean the community. And actually, those things used to happen in Uganda a few years ago, like volunteering. People could come up in the community. They decide, like, let's say this weekend we're gonna be cleaning the streets and stuff like that. Maybe because of modernity and stuff, and maybe other issues, that's not happening currently. But if you go to South Africa, you can see the community sometimes mobilizes itself, and they do maybe healthy runs or charity runs. For example, lottery clubs that they run for a cause. They make fundraisers, and then they try to help certain people in their community. So that one you could say is an example of patriotism. Well, the other thing is celebration of culture and heritage. Now, even in Uganda it happens, but not as much, because you see we have kingdoms. We have like Buganda Kingdom, one of the biggest, Toro Kingdom, Mkode, and many others. So the preservation and participation of people in their cultures and heritage is one way of being patriotic, or of promoting patriotism. So that is so common in the African setting or in African countries. So many countries in the African continent celebrate or participate in preservation of their culture. For example, we have so many different cultures. We have the Ankole culture, where they have the long-horned cows, the ones you see in South Africa, owned by President Cyril Ramaphosa. Those ones, the long-horned ones, they are from Ankole Kingdom in Uganda. Then there's so many, even in South Africa, they actually have a heritage day, a national heritage day. So on that heritage day, you see South Africans donned in their traditional or cultural attires, the Zulus, the Xhosa, even the coloureds, they also dress in their preferred cultural attires. So that's pretty much about patriotism. So nationalism, for it, I told you, it's a powerful, but also it can be a dangerous force, where loyalty is onto one's nation is pretty much about praising your country, giving it full attention. You're working everything towards your country's interest. Just like what Donald Trump said, MAGA, make America great again. So it doesn't matter whether there's a war in Israel, in Gaza, there's a war in Somalia, Congo, whatever. He doesn't care. What he cares about is America. And if he's gonna get involved in these wars or in these civil wars happening around the globe, he's still gonna get involved in the interest of his country. So that's what nationalism preaches about. Then the other thing, to defend sovereignty. Actually, I think all the countries are nationalistic or have nationalists. For example, all countries, they fight for their sovereignty. That's why I don't think there is a country that doesn't have a standing army. For example, Uganda has a standing army, the UPDF, South Africa has a standing army to protect and defend its sovereignty. The SNDF, South African Defense Force. So every country protects their sovereignty. Then the other one is champion self-reliance. Now, that's where African countries struggle. We don't really champion self-reliance. All we do is rely on the Western. Maybe that's because of colonialism and also the colonial mindset. We are still having a colonial mindset. Now, this is going to be kind of controversial. You see, there's a popular or famous politician in Uganda called Bobby Wine or Sentam Chagulanyi. Usually when he's talking about government or against the government, he says he's going to tell the European Union not to fund the government of Uganda because it's not doing the will of people, or it's against the people. Now, I would say that would call for self-reliance, but that's not his intention. His intention is to bankrupt the government, or to make sure the government fails economically. Because now I would think the government is getting aid from Western countries so that it can lift its economy, and then in the long run it's going to be self-reliant. So when someone comes up and says, no, don't fund or don't give aid to this government because it's failing its people, that means you're trying to be unnationalistic, you're trying to be unpatriotic, you're fighting against your own country. So now that's where most of African countries fail. When it comes to nationalism, we are not that nationalistic. We are not trying to fight towards self-reliance. All we do is ask for aid, ask for aid, ask for aid. And if someone is trying to ask for aid, maybe to improve the economy and try to better it and stop being reliant on other countries, then someone from the opposition does the opposite again, because it's opposition. So the other thing is national guard resource, guarding national resources. Yeah, that's pretty much one thing I would say. Also, again, as Africans, we don't protect our national resources. I mean, Africa is one of the most endowed, gifted continents. I mean, most of the African countries have mineral resources, or have minerals actually. But most of the countries are still poor. They're still struggling. For example, Congo has been in a war since, how many now? Almost 50 years. And you know how many minerals Congo has, or how many minerals are being extracted out of Congo? So many, but they're not being guarded. Whenever we discover minerals in our countries, there's going to be a war. So we're not doing a great job to be nationalistic or to protect our resources. Then national pride abroad. Well, also that's a very, very big challenge. We are not nationally proud of our countries when we go abroad. When you see most of Africans that go to the Europe, they don't want to come back. Most of them, they don't want to come back. That's why some of them are even illegal in those countries. Then the other thing, you way. You know, then the other thing, when they go to overseas or in Western countries, they tend to campaign or talk ill of their government. So that's not national pride. When you go abroad, you should be promoting your country. You should be talking good of your country. I mean, we are struggling. Africans are still struggling. African countries are still struggling just because of colonial background, maybe also neo-colonialism. So it's so hard for us to change, to have a mindset change about our countries. Hence, we are not nationalistic. We need to change, guys. We really need to change. Then also support national leaders. Well, that's a very big problem. Firstly, it's hard to support our national leaders because when they come in the leadership positions, they change or they deviate from their manifestos, or from the agreement, or from the intention of leadership, and hence we lose morale to support them. Or also because of lack of patriotism, people, they stop loving their countries, and then in the long run they stop supporting their national leaders. For example, now President Museveni has been the president of Uganda for now 4 decades and still counting. But some people they're talking ill of him because firstly, he has ruled for long, but they don't see his achievements. They don't see what great job he has done in this country. Because for sure, you can see the economy has grown, the infrastructure has developed, education system is much better, the military, we are talking about regarding national resources, that includes the military, the standing army. I mean, he has improved, or he has kept peace in the neighboring African countries. You pretty much, guys, come with me on this point. He has been in Somalia ever since 2007. Somalia was struggling. He's been to Central African Republic. He's in Congo. I mean, not himself, but his troops that he has invested in financially, physically, and emotionally. So we should be supporting our national leaders, but that's a problem because, first of all, corruption and greed. Someone can come from the back door, they invest in one opposition leader, and then they promise them funding until they get into power. That's how colonized our minds are. Someone thinks they can just come and change the rhetoric and change the narrative and bring propaganda to change the national leadership because they've been promised some money. And others, they don't have leadership targets. That's why they can easily come into politics and try to maneuver. Man, it's a long story, but I don't want to go deep into that. So that's pretty much about nationalism. We need to support our national leaders. We need to preserve. We need to maintain our borders and support and protect our resources. There's so many things we need to learn from this. Then also now, excuse me. So I want to say again, nationalism also talks much about my country first. My country first. So before you go for war against the leading government or the ruling government, think about your country. Think about how many people are going to die before you go to rebel against or resist against the government. Because usually you don't usually see rebel groups or wars happening in the Western countries. It's not because they don't disagree. They actually even disagree much more than we do. But the way they act is different because firstly, they don't have people that come to fund those wrong ideas, negative ideas of rebelling against the governments. But in Africa, people are greedy, they are unpatriotic, they are unnationalistic, and they are so excited. They are greedy for a few things, having a house in Europe, they end up being easily bought and sold out and end up selling their countries because they want to achieve small little things. Because now there's one politician, actually, guys, you give me a minute to explain this. There's one politician who I like so much. He's a minister of justice currently in Uganda. He's called Norbert Mao. He told a story about the bees and the mango tree. So the bees came to a mango tree. I don't know if my English word is right. The swarm of bees came onto a mango tree, and they stayed on a mango tree for about 3 months. So when their time was up on the mango tree, they were trying to leave to relocate. So the queen bee told the worker bees, "Please go tell Mr. Tree that we are leaving. Mr. Tree must hold so firmly because we are leaving. She may fall down." So now the worker bee went to the roots and told the tree, "Oh, Madam Tree, please hold so firmly because we are leaving." Now the mango tree told the bee, "Oh, really? What do you mean you're leaving?" The bee said, "Oh no, we've been here for 3 months. Now that we are going to leave, maybe our departure is going to affect you in a way that you're going to be shaky. Maybe you could fall down." And now what's funny, the mango tree said, "No, come on, never mind. I didn't even know your presence. I didn't know that you've been on my branches for 3 months." So what that means, the gentleman or the honorable minister went ahead and explained that sometimes you could think your presence is meaningful to the mango tree or to this world or to this planet or to this country. But the moment you leave this country, even the country will not know your absence or your departure. In this case, I want to say this to politicians who do wrong or who promote violence and end up leading to deaths of so many people or their supporters. One day you will leave this country, one day you leave this continent, and your departure will not be noticed. So why do this? Why go for the long and wrong routes? Anyway, guys, in closure, I want to wind up with this by talking about xenophobia. So if you closely look at the points I just talked about in patriotism and nationalism, when you do them extremely, you end up being xenophobic. And actually, to me, in my own understanding, xenophobia wouldn't be a bad idea, But what's bad about it is being hostile, because now I was in South Africa. Sorry, I lived in South Africa for 5 years illegally. Now, the mere fact that I can go to South Africa and live there illegally explains why xenophobia is not a reality, or is not what it's said to be. Firstly, if it's true South Africans are xenophobic, it's not as bad as they say it. Because firstly, what they're trying to do is fight for jobs. Actually, now let's discuss xenophobia. Xenophobia happens because people are fighting for jobs. People are fighting to preserve their cultures. People are fighting because of population growth that is kind of disorganized. Because now, for example, I lived in Johannesburg for about 3 years. Now, if you go, I used to go to Johannesburg to deliver food and stuff like that, but I could see by 2019 to 2022, Johannesburg was not the same, because now it was filled with foreigners who do business based on their backgrounds, actually. Because like hawking, selling stuff on the roadsides, that was not the South African culture. That was not the way of doing business in South Africa. Because South Africa, they have designated shopping places like shopping malls, shopping centers, grocery stores and stuff like that. But now, like Malawians, when they are selling tomatoes, they just go on the roadside. Now that means the walkway or the pavement is going to be used for a shop instead of doing what it's supposed to be doing, being a walkway. Now in the long run, someone else is going to also establish another shop and another shop and another shop and another shop. In the long run, it's going to be crowded, congested and disorganized and dirty. You understand? So when South Africans come up to say, no, what you're doing is wrong, then they are xenophobic. Actually, now I've developed an idea. How about we also, as Ugandans, we become more nationalistic? Because apparently, when you go to a place or a suburb in Uganda called Lubaga, close to the capital city in Kampala, that place is crowded with Somalis, Eritreans, and Ethiopians. But the way they do their business is crazy. For example, now guys, I'm not trying to be xenophobic or promote it, but I'm trying to give you a picture of what really people call xenophobia, and which is not actually the truth. Now these guys, they come to a place, a suburb I told you called Lubaga. They want to rent houses. Let's say a house is rented at 1,000. I'm saying it's an example. So when these guys come in, there is a citizen who are renting this house. For them, because they are foreigners, they're going to want a house for 1,500. Now, the landlord is going to want money because the landlord is taking their kids to school. Now the landlord also wants more money to be able to take care of his basic needs. Obviously, he's going to kick out the citizen and give the foreigner a room to rent, because it's a bigger offer. You understand? Now, the landlord is not trying to be nationalistic, but he's trying to be economical. You understand? So in the long run, this is going to persist, this is going to increase, because this foreigner is going to tell another foreigner that here, it works like this. If you have more money, you're going to have more rooms. If you have more rooms, you're going to have more business. If you have more business, then you're kicking out the citizens. Now, if this happens for so long, you will find out that a specific suburb is named after foreigners, or is known for hosting foreigners. For example, what's happening in South Africa, Mayfair is known for Somalians and Ethiopians. It's not because the government just gave them this place. It's because they came with a big or a higher bid. You understand? They raised the bar high, so high that even the citizens cannot get there. You understand? So how long is this gonna go? It's gonna go until we go to this video where, to this instance where in America, there's a place that has been conquered by Somalis. It's not like conquering, like officially conquering, but it's like conquering in the way that the population is high in numbers of Somalis. So in the long run, citizens are going to be pushed to poor housing lifestyle. They're going to be pushed to villages or to the places you call locations or mukukus, small houses where there's no services, where there's no water, electricity and stuff like that. And what breeds that is xenophobia. If the citizens are pushed to the wall, they will end up complaining or attacking these foreigners that have pushed them away. So that means you're not being fair. Now for the politicians or for the leaders, they should have seen that from a long-term projection. But because even our leaders are corrupt, because leaders are not nationalistic, because our leaders are not patriotic, they don't even see that. Even if they see that, they're gonna be bribed, they're gonna give it a blind eye and end up affecting the country. Now, what causes that? Now, the result of all that, the leader will at some point maybe condone what the citizens are doing, fighting against the foreigners, or do what most of the politicians do, condemn what the citizens are doing. They will call that xenophobic, they will call that uncalled for, they will call that outrageous, they will call that unnecessary, because they want to do what politicians do. Politicians are these people who don't like a thing, but they talk against it because they want to give themselves a nice picture. So now that's pretty much what I think about South Africans being called xenophobic. Well, firstly, in the first place, I used to think, oh man, they are xenophobic, they are hateful and stuff like that. But after my 5 years of staying in South Africa, I realized, oh man, wait a minute. Why are these people xenophobic? If they could let us illegally come into their countries, because now it's obvious South Africans, they know, even the police, they know that they are foreigners in South Africa, they are foreigners in a specific place, they are foreigners doing specific jobs. But they let us be because firstly, they know we are Africans, we are their brothers and sisters. They let us marry their sisters, get married, and even officially do the cultural ceremonies of lobola and stuff like that. So in the first place, if you can see from the receptive point of view, like these foreigners coming to South Africa, from this point they start coming in, settling in, getting jobs, getting places to rent at, that means South Africans are not generally xenophobic. But what breeds xenophobia is firstly corruption and bribe from the leaders who don't do follow-up, who don't make sure they protect their borders, who don't protect their resources or guard their resources jealously. Because now you see, there's so many countries where foreigners go to illegally. Even in Spain they do go, even in the US they do go, but most cases they try to intervene them before they approach or they reach their destination. For example, in the US they're so strict that they can even deport you at the airport. They can deport you from the airport before you even step foot on the American soil, like before you get into the interior. That's how strict and nationalistic the country is. Now, in the long run, they will not be called xenophobic because they have a treatment that can cause the terminology xenophobia. Before they are being called xenophobic, they will be called nationalistic because they fight to avoid that branding of the name. But now South Africa is being Pan-African, it's being lenient, and in the long run they're being called xenophobic. Now the thing of chasing people from clinic, hospitals and stuff like that is also the same, it lies in the same category. Now you let people come in illegally, in the long run you're going to be fighting for medical care with them. Now at the end, a citizen is going to miss out on health care because you let someone illegally into your country. Now what they're going to do next time is fight this person who is fighting for health care with them. And then, because you don't reason this out, you're going to call that person, the citizen, xenophobic. Anyway guys, this conversation is long. I don't know if I exhausted it, but I know for sure I did some good job. But I definitely didn't exhaust it. I spoke based on my simple understanding, and I pretty much love to hear from you guys. I would like to see what you have to say about it. I love to see a broad lens or touch pointed to this conversation. So tell me in the comment sections, what do you think about the story? What do you think about the conversation? Anyways, I would like you guys to subscribe to the channel, like, share, and comment. Peace and love out.